Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you, hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country who tune into Radio 4, but also around the world on the World Service, and those who listen to us on the internet. And also it's my huge pleasure to welcome the 4 exciting, individual and highly talented players of the game. It's always a pleasure to have on the show that highly inventive, original and wonderful comedian, Paul Merton. We also have another equally talented and more outrageous comedian, that is Graham Norton. We also have a wonderful comedian and lovely actress, Linda Smith, and we have one of the original members of Just a Minute who's contributed so much over the years, that's the ever-talented Clement Freud. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me, sits Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from St Edmund's Hall, which is in the lovely Suffolk town of Southwold on the coast of this beautiful county. And we have in front of us a wonderful, hyped-up, enthusiastic Suffolk audience ready to enjoy this show, which is... I've told them we're going to enjoy it, so they obviously are. It's part of the theatre festival here in Southwold. And we begin the show this week with Paul Merton. Paul, oh dear, the best-dressed member of the panel. Will you talk on that subject? 60 seconds, starting now.
Sir Clement Freud is wearing a charming off-the-shoulder cocktail dress. Besparkled with a million sequins, and as they glitter in the light, I can't help but wonder where the earrings, which are part of the matching ensemble, Norman from Tottenham, I think, is the designer. What a wonderful, brave decision to wear a bra outside your jacket, as well as the charming high-heeled shoes made out of pink leather. A marvellous, absolutely...
Clement Freud's challenge.
They were too marvellous.
There was too marvellous.
Too marvellous for words.
Too marvellous. Too unbelievable for words. Clement, you have a correct challenge, so you get a point for that. You take over the subject. The subject is the best-dressed member of the panel, and you have 34 seconds available, starting now.
My book, Dressing for Radio, I think tells nearly what you need is a colour-coordinated rapport with a microphone. And of all the well-dressed people on this panel, may I suggest Nicholas Parsons, although I think wearing a morning coat in the evening is overdoing it to some extent.
Paul, you challenge.
Well, it's slight deviation, is it? Because it is the best-dressed member of the panel.
Yes.
And you're chairman.
Oh, what a clever Yes, they hadn't spotted it, but they applauded when you spotted it. Paul, a correct challenge, deviation. You've got in. You have a point, of course, for that. 11 seconds are available, and you begin now.
The temperature of this hall is very hot. It's so hot.
Oh, yes. Even after the many years you've played it, it's still a tough game, isn't it? Clement, you got in first. I think we all know what it was. 7 seconds. The best-dressed member of the panel, Clement, starting now.
I'm on day 7 of the Atkins diet, and I thought I would just mention...
Linda challenged.
Perhaps a hint of deviation?
I think he should have established right at the start that the Atkins diet has got something to do with him being the best-dressed member of the panel, and he didn't. So I give you the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, Linda, and you've got him with 1 second to go on this subject. We've got friends for both sides in the audience. Starting now.
The best-dressed person...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was, on this occasion, of course, Linda Smith, and she has 2 points, and so is Clement Freud in the round. Paul has 1. Graham has yet to score. And, Graham, you begin the next round. The subject is DJs. Tell us something about DJs in just a minute, starting now.
DJs are, of course, also known as disc jockeys. This name came about in olden days when records were much bigger and small Shetland ponies dragged needles around and around with a little man.
Paul challenge.
Around and around?
Around and around. No, around and around.
I think it was round and around.
I was sitting next to him, but I wasn't really listening.
We'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say...
Really?
Yes, it was. A point to you for an incorrect challenge, Graham. You keep the subject. There are 45 seconds available. DJs starting now.
Tragically, in my home, I dance around and neighbours glance through the window.
Repetition of a round.
You see, poetic justice. If you let him go, he comes back again, doesn't it? So,
There's no element of doubt in that particular challenge?
no doubt at all. Right.
Even I heard that one.
Yes. Paul, you have 37 seconds. Tell us something about DJs starting now.
The first DJ on the BBC.
Clement, yes.
Repetition of B.
Yes. I know, it's a tough game. Right, 35 seconds, Clement. With you, it's DJ still.
The best-dressed member of the panel wears a DJ, which is, of course, a dinner jacket.
Linda, you've challenged.
Well, I was going to say deviation because you're talking about what we were wearing, but also deviation because no one's wearing a dinner jacket.
No, but he did say before, it doesn't matter. DJs is an abbreviation for dinner jackets. And he was going off about dinner jackets.
That's true. I wish I feel awful now.
No, you don't. No, he was rather shrewd and clever, and and you're all keen, and you got in, and you were the first one in there. Oh. But unfortunately, Clement, an incorrect challenge, so you keep the subject. You have a point, of course. 32 seconds, DJs starting now.
A jay is a bird, rather like a tit, but unlike...
Paul, challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, hesitation. Had him for hesitation. You could have had him for deviation. Jay is nothing like a tit. Two more different kind of birds you couldn't see. 25 seconds with you, Paul, on DJ starting now.
Was Christopher Stone, and he used to play records around about 1926, and the term disc jockey, I think, was coined for him. It is one of those avenues in show business where if you're not particularly good looking, you don't wish to appear on television, you can still earn quite a good whack by appearing on the radio playing other people's recordings. You can say, hello, this is the latest track from Blondie, or if you're more up to date, something from perhaps Geraldo.
So Paul Merton kept going for a number of seconds until the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and he's equal in the lead with Clement Freud at the end of that round. And Linda, your turn to begin, and the subject now is crabs. Well, Warbleswick is known for its crabs, but you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Whenever I come to Southwold, I always go home with crabs. I think it's because I hang around outside the sailors' reading rooms for quite a while. It's lovely to go down the pier and fish for crabs. Crabs are always a delightful treat to get to eat. Dressed crabs are more expensive because it's so difficult to get their jumpers over their little claws. That's where the extra money goes. It's a tasty repast. I like to think of it as the chicken of the deep because it has brown and white meat, as does the fowl I have just mentioned. I think that crab sandwiches are maybe the best way to enjoy this little meal. It is perhaps also...
Repetition of little.
Little, yes.
Oh, don't worry, it wasn't an accident.
Now, I think you've got the audience with you, but Clement, correct challenge. You have 20 seconds available. Tell us something about crabs starting now.
The best-dressed crab, I always say, is one that has hard-boiled egg, both the albumen and the yolk, chopped carefully with parsley, onion and anchovy. You put these on a plate in the shell and serve it at outrageous prices.
So, Clement Freud, speaking as the whistle went, gained the extra point, and the other one in the round, he's now taking the lead ahead of Paul Merton, then Linda Smith and Graham Norton in that order, and Clement, your turn to begin. And the subject now is time-saving devices. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
A home hysterectomy kit springs to mind. But I suppose, after some consideration, a blender would be high up in my list. If you want to make a mayonnaise, put into it eggs, mustard, lemon, vinegar, salt, and a pinch of sugar before adding the oil, which, in the case...
Graham challenged.
I think a deviation, because surely a real time-saving thing would just be to go out and buy mayonnaise in a jar.
That's not a device.
No, but you've saved time. Fair enough, on you go.
It's one of those difficult decisions, I think, because it is a device for making it, and it's probably time-saving. You can argue that way, so I don't think he was, strictly speaking, deviating within the rules of just a minute. So, Clement, benefit of the doubt to you on this occasion. Keep the subject, 38 seconds, time-saving devices starting now.
If you don't like those sort of devices, you can go out to a shop and buy some condiment, whatever you like, in a shop. Or
Paul challenge.
We had repetition of shop.
Yes, you did. Paul, I agree with that. 27 seconds available. Time-saving devices starting now.
Some time-saving devices aren't actually very good. The microwave does save an awful lot of time, but unfortunately all the food it cooks is awful. And there is good...
Linda, challenge.
Repetition of good.
That's right, yes. Good. And all the fingers went, but yours went first, Linda. 18 seconds with you. Time-saving devices starting now.
If I met Jeffrey Archer, I'd take an immediate dislike to him. That would be a time-saving device, which would be very useful to me in life. Some time-saving devices are less good,
Graham, challenge.
Was it a repetition of good?
No, I don't think
There was a hesitation.
No,
what?
there wasn't.
There was a repetition of less.
Now, Graham, she actually hesitated, but you didn't spot it. So it's too late now. I have to accept the first challenge. So, Linda, you keep the subject. You have 4 seconds on time-saving devices starting now.
Instant tea is a time-saving device, but it's ghastly. Marks and Spencer's...
So Linda Smith was speaking then as the whistle went, gained an extra point, and she's now equal with Paul Merton in second place behind Clement Freud, and then Graham Norton coming up behind them all. And Paul, it's your turn to be, and the subject is fake tans. Tell us something about those in just a minute, starting now.
Fake tan is a labour-saving device. It says something about the person who has a fake tan. It says, I'm bright, I'm busy, I'm orange. These are the things that fake tans do for you. Unlike the real tan, there is no particular health problem associated with the fake tan. You just go into one of these shops, they squirt you full of some kind of brown-like liquid. I'm not quite sure exactly what goes on, but there is no problem with it, unlike the rays of the sun.
Graham challenge.
Repetition of problem.
Yes. So, Graham, you've got in with 37 seconds on fake tans starting now.
I did once, I'm afraid to admit, have a fake tan. I went into a shop and got what they call a Saint-Tropez. And I'm here to tell you, it was a dismal failure. No tan showed up anywhere, except my hands did look like I'd been doing something that a novice vet might have to spend a lot of time on. It wasn't a great look. I wasn't happy. The other...
What was that O for? Joy, pleasure, or...
Is that your hypnotist key word? What?
Forward challenge.
A repetition of wasn't.
It wasn't, yes. It was 2 wasn'ts there. 1 second to go. Fake tans, Paul, starting now.
Satsuma is one of the most...
So at the end of that round, Paul Merton, with 1 or 2 points, has gone 1 ahead of Clement Freud into the lead, and then 2 ahead of Linda Smith, and then Graham Norton. And Graham, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is de-cluttering. 60 seconds, starting now.
You've got to feel a little sorry for clutter, which people do feel obliged to declutter.
Paul, challenge.
Well, it was a repetition of feel.
You've got to feel, yes.
You're quite right.
Yes.
There were 2 feels. You were feeling it too much.
Yes.
And on the expression on your face, there was huge feeling as well.
Yeah, it's very deep.
Yes, and Paul, a point, and the subject, and 54 seconds, decluttering starting now.
Decluttering is one of those words that's popped into common use in the last few years.
Graham, challenge.
Common use? Declutter? I don't think I've ever heard it before.
Oh, no, I think it's been around for quite a bit.
Oh, has it?
Yes.
I'm so wrong.
I think it's been around quite a while, and if not, it's been used for quite a while, if it's not in the proper...
So it's a word that's been used but has actually not been around.
That's right. It's not been...
Around? Don't say that again.
A bonus point for Graham for his around. Paul was interrupted. A point for that. Decluttering still with you, Paul, and 50 seconds starting now.
It's a byproduct of feng shui, which is a Japanese term meaning you have more money than sense. There was a couple who wanted to buy a house in Yorkshire, but they had an expert in this particular art who advised them not to buy each property that they saw.
Linda, challenge.
Repetition of bye.
Yes, we're buying, yes. We've got 36 seconds to talk about decluttering starting now.
My house could do with decluttering when I leave the home that... Oh, it was a hollow victory, wasn't it?
Yes. But it was lovely to hear from you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Hesitation, Paul, yes. 32 seconds, decluttering starting now.
The Eskimo has no particular problem with decluttering because when it comes to spring, his house melts away. And he doesn't have to worry about picking up those little things thinking, why did I buy that?
Yes.
Hesitation,
yes. 17 seconds, Clement. Decluttering starting now.
Decluttering is a word which I particularly didn't want to speak about, especially for 17 seconds. It is the opposite of...
Paul, challenge.
Well, I thought I'd relieve Clement of the responsibility. There's a slight hesitation there, I thought.
No, there wasn't any hesitation. No,
I didn't think there was either myself.
Clement, I don't think it was a big enough response for a bonus either, so...
No.
Well,
we could just sit here and sort of wallow in my misery, or we could just move on with the show.
Clement, another point, 9 seconds, decluttering starting now.
Mrs. Cluttering's daughter, Dee, was one of the most attractive women that I've come across. She lived in Wenniston, near Westleton, not far from...
Right. So it's a pretty close contest. Clement Freud is now 1 point behind Paul Merton, who's in the lead, and Linda Smith, with all her bonus points, is only 3 behind our leader, and Graham Norton is a few more behind them, but that's all. And Linda, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is It Girls. Tell us something about those girls in this game, starting now.
It girls are posh girls who are famous for going out and wearing clothes. Tamara Beckwith is an it girl. I saw her on television having an enema. How extraordinary. It crossed my mind. Colonic irrigation. It's sort of a kind of a...
Graham, challenge.
I was just buzzing as a sort of full stop. Hesitation.
Yes, I agree with you, Graham. Will you tell us something about colonic irrigation? No, that's not your sense.
I can if you want me to.
The subject is It Girls, actually, not
What
the
is
other
it,
one.
It Girls?
40 seconds are available. It Girls is the subject. With you, Graham, starting now.
It girls tend to be skinny and are famous for what they do. Nothing. They tend to have very rich parents.
Linda.
Well, hesitation, but I could bite my tongue off, really, for doing it.
No. Actually, it was a bit incoherent, but it wasn't actually a genuine hesitation.
No.
Now, you have the benefit of the doubt on this occasion.
Oh, thank you.
You don't want it?
Oh, go on then.
Go on. I'm sure you can go very
Yes, I'm
well
sure
on
I
It
can,
Girls.
yes.
You have many It Girls on your programme on the television. Yes. 35 seconds. It Girls with you, Graham, starting now.
Tara Palmer Tompkinson, Mara Beckworth, Lady Victoria Hervey. They are all it girls. They have little funny stick limbs, hardly big enough to hold up a glass of champagne, and yet somehow they can. God, they're brave. They manage to struggle out of small flats in Notting Hill night after evening and eat canapes off trays. Not too many hors d'oeuvres for me, or I won't fit into a very narrow...
You didn't want the subject, but you went magnificently. You raised the temperature of the room as well as your own. And Graham Norton has a number of points in the round, including one for speaking the whistle went. He's still in 4th place, but a very good 4th place now. He's only just behind Linda Smith. There's one behind Clement Freud. There's one behind Paul Merton. Paul, let's start the next round with you. And the subject is how to be the perfect spy. Tell us something about that in just a minute, starting now.
Undoubtedly, the most perfect spy is yet to be found. It could be somebody that we've never heard of. Undoubtedly, it's some...
Yes. Undoubtedly, yes. 54 seconds. How to be the perfect spy, starting now.
I think the important thing is the false moustache. Look where...
Paul, challenge.
Not if you're a female spy.
Paul, I give you a bonus point because they enjoyed the challenge, but you actually could find a female spy having to use a false moustache in certain situations.
Under what circumstances?
It's
Berlin, it's 1930.
I think of a scenario for you. She might be caught in a compromising situation, had to get out and pretend she was a father. I don't know. But, I mean, I feel within the rules of just a minute, he wasn't actually deviating. So, but you got your bonus point.
Okay.
But Clement has a point for being interrupted. 50 seconds. How to be the perfect spy, Clement, starting now.
A hirsute upper lip is extremely useful if you are a woman spy. And I would recommend it to everyone. There was a lady called Olga Polowski, of whom a song about whom...
Graham challenge.
Yes.
To whom?
To whom's, yes. To whom, yeah, whom to whom, yes. Right, 35 seconds. How to be the perfect spy, Graham, starting now.
The perfect spy would be a bearded lady, stuff that moustache, and just go out and about. And, of course, people would be distracted and slightly embarrassed by the terrible facial thing going on, and would never suspect her of looking for secrets hither-tither. And, of course, she could hide them in the fluffy thing hanging off her head, like a small bird's nest. Perhaps the secrets could be in small eggshells, and they could...
Paul challenge.
The repetition of small.
Yes, there was a repetition of small.
Oh, what a pity.
Small thing. They enjoyed it all, yes. Quite bizarre, but they enjoyed it. Right, 7 seconds, Paul. You've got in now on how to be the perfect spy, starting now.
There was a man who apparently infiltrated the Russian KGB organisation in 1935, and what he did was he disguised himself.
So at the end of that round, Paul Merton, speaking as a whistle, gained that extra point. He's one behind our leader, who's Clement Freud, a little way behind, equal in third place, Graham Norton and Linda Smith. And Linda, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is the best use of a beach hut. Well, that struck some chords in our audience here. They're very expensive items these days, I believe. You have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
The best use of a beach hut is to sell it to some idiot down from Islington for £500,000. And I think you'll find that this is very easy to do. Dress up a small child as an estate agent and get them to show them these people round, and they'll think it's more spacious than it is. But, of course, living in that part of North London that I have mentioned before, they will think that's quite spacious anyway.
Clement challenge.
Repetition of spacious.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, it's too spacious. 33 seconds is available for you, Clement, on the best use of a beach hut, starting now.
The best use of a beach hut is for speed dating. What you do is you get a whole queue of people on the north side of the beach hut and speed date them straight...
Full challenge.
Repetition of speed dating.
Speed
No.
dating.
I said speed date.
Yeah, but you repeated the word speed, didn't you?
But he said repetition of speed dating.
But he did mention the word speed, and I have to be
He
fair
didn't
with the
say
rules.
repetition of speed.
Fight!
Yes. If we're going to be
Nicholas,
semantic, yes.
Clement, leave it. It's not worth it.
I think the rules of
We
just a
can't go
minute...
out anyway. This happens everywhere we go. I'm sick of it.
I think the rules...
We're having a nice night in the theatre and this goes off. Honestly, I'm sick of it.
Another bonus point to Linda. I think the rules as originally devised by Ian Messiter were, as long as he mentions you repeated one of the words, it is a repetition. So, Paul, you have the benefit of the doubt with 21 seconds on the best use of a beach hut, starting now.
When you go down to the beach early in the morning, the sun is low in the sky, and you think to yourself, I'm going to go for a swim, but what shall I do? How shall I change from my ordinary clothes into my swimming costume? I know, a beach hut. And as it appears on the horizon, you move towards it. The glistening brow, you think to yourself, I'm going to get changed in the most magnificent piece of swimming costume that any man...
Wait a minute. No, there was a challenge just before the buzzer.
Repetition of public library.
Clement,
He's right.
No. Clement, without knowing it, your clever and devious mind has given me a wonderful way on which to finish the show.
Are you resigning?
Half a second, Paul. Beach hut, starting now.
Undoubtedly.
So we have no more time to play Just a Minute. How sad that is. But Graham Norton, who hasn't played it quite so often because he's been very busy on television, actually, came back but finished in a very strong fourth position. He wasn't very far behind Linda Smith, who was in a very powerful third position. But out in the lead was Clement Freud, and he was just 1 point behind Paul Merton. So what I think is any fair thing to say, let's give both of them a big round of applause. It only remains me to say thank you to Paul Merton, Graham Norton, Linda Smith and Clement Freud. I also thank Janet Staplehurst, who's helped me keep the score. She's blown her whistle with such aplomb that has been charming. We thank our producer, who is Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this delightful game. And we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here at the St. Edmund's Hall in Southwold, who've cheered us on their way in spite of the heat. You've been lovely. We've enjoyed it. From the panel, from me, Nicholas Parsons, goodbye. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away once more, it is my infinite pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, those who listen to us on the world service or tune in and hear us on the internet. And also it's a huge pleasure to welcome 4 individual, exciting, clever, talented players of the game who are going to display their wit and humour and their skill with words as they speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And those 4 people are Jenny Eclair and Ross Noble, Tony Hawkes and Clement Freud. Please welcome all 4 of them. And sitting beside me is Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Palace Theatre in Westcliff. And we have a good Essex audience here as we begin the show this week with Clement Freud. Clement, something to write home about. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I used to do a lot of writing home. Dear Mother, yesterday I ate a Bakewell tart. Or affectionate father.
Ross, challenge.
Did he hesitate?
Ross, you have a correct challenge. And you have 52 seconds, you get a point, of course, for a correct challenge, to take over this subject, something to write home about, starting now.
Having something to write home about is all very well, unless, of course, you live on your own, in which case it's quite a depressing thing. You return back to your place of residence and walk through the door to find masses of letters just saying, oh, I've had a great time, but you haven't really. It's also very unpleasing to your personal mindset.
Jenny, challenge.
You could drive a bus through that pause, couldn't you, Nicholas?
No, you couldn't drive a bus, but he did pause.
He did pause.
Jenny, we interpret that slurring as a hesitation, so you have the subject of something to write home about. You have a point, of course, and 30 seconds available starting now.
Dear Mum, can I have some money? Love, Jenny. I think to have something to write home about means, as a euphemism, a significant thing has happened in your life that you need to alert your loved ones to. Possibly you've been on holiday, met a lovely Brazilian girl, and you need to tell the wife, sorry, I've lived with you for 30 years and hated you for 29 and a half of those, so I'm leaving you for this beauty. That would be something to write home about, and the recipient...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion it was Jenny Eclair, and Jenny, you're in second place. You've got 2 points. Ross Noble has 3 points, and Ross, it's also your turn to begin. So would you tell us something about Amusement arcades? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Amusement arcades are a good place to win teddy bears that clearly contravene every safety regulation that has ever been invented. There you go there, kiddie. Have a lovely toy from me. You rip the head off, there's a great big spike sticking out. Don't put it too close to the fire or it will slowly melt. Its face changing ever so slightly as the heat affects the synthetic fibres. This, of course, can be good fun as it looks quizzical and then sad, then hopeful, and at the same time ponderous at the possibilities that it could have endured had it not been taken back to your place with the fire.
So, Tony, you challenged.
Yes, I did brilliantly, but there was a slight hesitation.
There was a hesitation. Yes, he kept going magnificently for 38 seconds, and the audience enjoyed it. You showed that by the applause. But, Tony, you have a correct challenge. You have a point, of course. You have amusement arcades to tell us, talk on, and the 22 seconds starting now.
I imagine there are a lot of amusement arcades in this general area where we find ourselves tonight, Westcliff-on-Sea or Southend. But I don't visit them, I have to say. You see very little amusement in there. Just people getting a little bit irritated. 20p in there, and I nearly had that thing with the grabby, but it didn't get it, and the cow fell over, and I've lost it, and I'm now going to go and change £1, and I don't know
So Tony Hawks was speaking as the whistle went, gained the extra point. He's equal with Jenny Eclair. Ross is in the lead, and Jenny, it's your turn to begin. The subject now, puppy love. Tell us something about puppy love in this game, starting now.
And they called it puppy love, just because we're in our teens. Oh, why can't I make them see this is not a puppy dream?
Tony, you've challenged.
deviation from the correct tune.
I can't help it.
God, I did hope someone was going to stop it.
No, it's a disability. I've got a car sticker because of that. I can't sing, I'm tone deaf, and it's not fair to laugh.
I don't think it's sensible to start. But, Tony, I agree with your challenge of deviation. And with relief, I say, yes, you have a point on the subject. I should explain to our listeners that awe and gasp from the audience was because Jenny pretended to be upset and overwhelmed and left the stage here at Westcliff.
Only my professionalism means that I will
So she
continue.
has returned. I wouldn't bother to go in for Pop Idol if they asked you. Jenny. Tony, 47 seconds are available. Tell us something about puppy love, starting now.
And they call it puppy love, just because... Oh, I'd love to play that at the Westcliff-on-Sea Palace Theatre.
Ross challenge.
He deviated from the words. Just because we're in our teens, not in Westcliff-on-Sea.
Yeah, but he stopped doing the lyrics.
He didn't sing the full song. He went into something about Westcliff, which wasn't in the original.
He broke off from singing the song in tune to say, I'd like to do that at the Westcliff-on-Sea Palace Theatre. It wasn't a correct challenge. Tony, you have a point. You have the subject still. Puppy love, 37 seconds, starting now.
You're a sad little 11-year-old at school and you fancy Alison Wilcox like nobody's business. It is a case of puppy love, and every time I went to say hello to her, she rejected me. Oh, my goodness, I can feel the sadness in this very room. Your theatre, call it what you will. But it was puppy love, all right, and I suffered more than anybody else ever did, and it looked like Janet was going to blow the whistle then, but she did. Did you just do it? You went like that. You teased me with the whistle.
Yes.
I thought, I'll relax, I've nearly done it.
This is what they do for listeners. They watch Janet, and when she picks up the whistle, they think there's only 2 seconds to go. But she did a little naughty there, didn't you, Janet? Well, anyway, Jenny challenged first.
Yeah.
What was it?
Deviation and 2 Janets.
Well,
Wasn't his girlfriend called Janet?
No, it wasn't. No.
Oh, damn.
Is your challenge hesitation?
Yes, hesitation and deviation.
No, what was your first challenge?
What was
deviation.
What was my challenge?
I have absolutely no idea.
But you told me to.
Yeah.
You nudged me.
Jenny, your first challenge was deviation.
Deviation.
I'm sorry, I can't accept it.
That's
he
the
did
second time I've
hesitate.
been made to cry.
Within this game, I do have to accept the first challenge someone gives. He hesitated, but you didn't have him for that. 12 seconds, still with you on Puppy Love. Tony, starting now.
Donny Osmond had a big hit with that song, and it was memorable. 1972. Someone might pick me up on that, but I don't think they...
Jenny has...
1973.
It's actually 1971.
Oh. I was already lying about my age back then.
Right. I don't think we charge any points on that, and let Tony keep the subject. And there are 5 seconds on Puppy Love, starting now.
But if I could have held her hand in that playground, I would have...
Oh, yes, Clement, challenge.
We've had a playground.
Yes, you were in the playground before, yes, when you went up to this Puppy Love. And Clement's got him with 1 second to go. Yeah, someone clapped, I don't know why. And the others were groaning. But still, Clement, you have 1 second. Puppy Love, starting now.
Immature affection.
Colonel Freud speaking as the whistle went. Gained an extra point. His equal Ross Noble in second place behind Tony Hawk's our leader, and 1 point ahead of Jenny Clare, who's in fourth place. I never know if two people are equal in second place for the next person's third or fourth.
It's not important information for you to know, Nicholas. You're
No,
only
but-
the host
but-
of a
but-
quiz show where you have to get...
Tony, I'd like you to take the subject of Esperanto. I'm sure you can speak it. If not, tell us something about it in just a minute, starting now.
Am facut un pariu que voi bate la tennis pituts d'equipa nacionale di football Redsatchu Katskumine is, of course, Esperanto for I've taken on a bet I can beat the entire Moldovan national football team at tennis. Will you play with me? I learned this for a very specific reason. I'd always wanted to speak Esperanto. Great admirer of Zamenhof, who was the Polish physician who came up with this peculiar little thing where they spoke almost a bit of romance and then other things. Hello.
Ross.
He went,
I know. He was giving us so much interesting information.
I
but,
should tell you, it wasn't Esperanto at all, it was Romanian.
I recognise that, but it was not my position to say so. Ross, you challenge first. 25 seconds on Esperanto starting now.
I once attempted to learn Esperanto. I went down to my local bookshop and bought a tape. Unfortunately, the player that I was using's batteries were very low, so all I can say is...
Clement challenge.
It was repetition.
I think it was repetition. It sounded like... and I didn't know.
No, it was... Let me do it again.
Yeah.
I'll translate. I like a coffee.
I think you elongated the vowel sound to such an extent. I know it was a demonstration. I've got an impossible decision here. I think the fairest thing to do is to give both of you a point, because it could have been interpreted as deviation, but you illustrated that it wasn't. Hesitation, I mean. And Ross, you continue with 11 seconds on Esperanto starting now.
Well, I got home and powered up that particular...
Jenny challenge.
Got home twice.
I did get home
Yes,
twice.
you got
I
home
got two
before.
homes.
And Jenny, you've got him with 9 seconds on Esperanto starting now.
I think even if they made it law, us Brits wouldn't bother speaking it. We'd just point and shout louder, because that's what we call communication.
So Jenny Eclair speaking as the whistle went. She was training a little before, but she's now catching up the other three, who are actually all equal, 1 point ahead of her in the lead. And it is Clement's turn to begin. Clement Freud, would you speak on My Childhood Sweetheart? 60 seconds starting now.
When I was about 12 years old, in the village of Walswick in East Suffolk, where I then lived and live now, I had a childhood...
Yes,
It was
Ross?
it
He then lived and lived now.
Oh, he's done it
Yes.
again.
Damn
you,
that wasn't a repetition. Bad luck, Ross. 51 seconds, still with you, Clement. My Childhood Sweetheart starting now.
My childhood sweetheart was called Julie, and I was deeply fond of her and wrote to her from school. And then I learnt that there are so many billion people in the world, and the likelihood of my ending up with someone who lived in the same community that I did. I said lived twice.
It was Tony who challenged first.
Yes, I think it was a repetition of lived, you know. I really do.
And Clement very generously drew everybody's attention to it. 31 seconds. You've talked a bit about your childhood sweetheart, so tell us a bit more, Tony, starting now.
Yes, I've already begun to speak on this subject in a previous round. Alison Wilcox, lovely little girl she was, and I took her out one day. I was only 12 years old, didn't know really how to go about taking a girl on a date. So I took her to see a...
Jenny challenged.
Two tooks.
No, it was taking,
Taking it.
take.
Yeah, but you...
No, taking, and he
taking,
take.
taking,
and-
taking.
No, he was taking and then take. And now it's took. It's a tough game. Sorry, Jenny. A point to Tony still. 16 seconds. My Childhood Sweetheart starting now.
And she wouldn't come with me because she was out with Julie, the girl...
Clement Troy challenge.
She
Yes.
She wouldn't. She was...
There were too many she's, Tony, and Clement has 13 seconds to tell us about My Childhood Sweetheart starting now.
I had another childhood sweetheart whose name was Alicia, Felicia, Delicia, and was absolutely charming. One of the nicest, and her feet were...
Clement Freud, speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point, and he has increased his lead. He's just ahead of Tony Hawks, Ross Noble and Jenny Eclair in that order. Ross, will you take the next round? The subject is muscle builders. Can you tell us something about muscle builders in this game, starting now?
Muscle builders are a ridiculous idea. Making seafood, do odd jobs around the house. It's just simple. Whatever next? Will we have prawns laying patios? Whelks outside putting a decking in the back garden? It's simply preposterous. Jellied eels will be turning up, giving you a quote on a loft installation system. I think that this sort of carry-on should be outlawed. People talk about cowboys, but I think that the deep-sea activities of these particular creatures is bang out of order.
Clement. Clement, you interrupted his flow. What have you challenged for?
Deviation.
Why?
Muscles are shallow, not deep sea.
Yeah, but we could have interpreted the fact that he could have had deep sea characters coming up to quote as well. So what I think we'd do is... I suppose to be fair within the rules of just a minute, it was just that he was going so well. Give him give Ross a bonus point for that wonderful piece of improvisation that he did.
Give him.
And Clement Freud has a point for a correct challenge, and he has 28 seconds starting now.
You have to have muscles to begin with. A muscle builder is really pretty hopeless if you're fat and flabby and have no muscles in your legs or arms, let alone shoulders, neck, rib cage.
Ross challenged.
Muscles in your rib cage?
Yes, you do.
There are little muscles in your rib cage, you know. They're very small ones.
I'll say we have an autopsy. I'm not happy until we've had an autopsy.
I must explain to our listeners that Jenny was actually demonstrating with her ribs, you know. She bared them and showed them to Ross.
I've actually hurt myself quite badly with that demonstration. May I have a point?
No. Clement, another point to you, because incorrect challenge, 10 seconds. Muscle builders starting now.
If you join a gymnasium, which is pretty expensive, especially in London or cities of...
Ross challenge.
The YMCA offer reasonable prices for all sorts of people. Due to a membership scheme.
Yeah,
Can I have the subject back, please?
For hesitation?
Yeah, if you like.
Right, hesitation, it was correct. 4 seconds on muscle builders with you, Ross, starting now.
Make sure you don't confuse steroids with steroids, because that can cause a lot of problems.
So Ross Noble, speaking as a whistle went, has got points. He's just 2 behind our leader, Clement Freud, and just ahead of Tony Hawks and Jenny Eclair. And Jenny, your turn to begin. The subject, good turns. Tell us something about good turns in this game, starting now.
My idea of a good turn is a 360-degree spin on a 6-inch stiletto. Hey, yeah, watch that. If you're a scout or a brownie, you're brought up to believe good turns are a Christian thing to do. They're so dull. They usually involve picking up a pound of cod for an invalid from the fishmongers. I would rather lend somebody 50 quid cash than do them a good turn. The thing when people do you good turns is that they inevitably, 6 months later, they say, but can you look after my dog while I go on holiday? And a smelly beast comes round and tries to have sex on your leg, and that's just your friend's husband. But I would, honestly, rather donate money.
Thank you. Ross, your challenge.
It's a repetition of rather.
Yes,
Rather.
you did say rather, yes, before.
Only because I would rather.
Yes. So, Ross, you've got in on good turns, and there's 16 seconds to tell us something about it, starting now.
Good turns can be found in the following roads. The A13, 127, B2943.
Tony, challenge.
Repetition of 2.
Yes, 2.
But I was reading it off a sign as 1. You're right, though.
No, yes.
And they're all straight roads, so I was cleverly pulling a tricky trick.
Yes, right. So many other numbers you could have chosen, but Tony, you've got in with 8 seconds on good turns, starting now.
One good turn deserves another, so when somebody does one for me, I say, do it again, pal! I want all the goodness that's coming. I'm not stopping, I'm going, I'm on a roll now, I'm just...
No, Clement's challenged you. Your roll all stopped.
Repetition of 1.
Yes, it was 1. Too many ones there. So Clement's got in with 2 seconds to go. On good turn, starting now.
The foxtrot involves...
So Clement Freud speaking as a whistle win. Got extra points as well as the others in the round. He's increased his lead. Tony Hawks, it's your turn to begin. And the subject here now is tearjerkers. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Some people go to the cinema to be frightened, some to the theatre to be scared on occasions like tonight, but they might actually visit one of these establishments in order to cry. The tearjerker is designed specifically for this. Let's think of some. The loves...
Clement's challenge.
There's the third sum.
That's
Yes.
true.
I
Too
know
many
the first
sums.
two. Yeah.
Yeah, there's. So Clement, you got in with another point and 42 seconds available. Tearjerkers starting now.
I cry at almost every film that I've ever seen. The Wizard of Oz.
Only one film, Clement.
I was thinking about it. National Velvet reduces me.
Right, but Tony got in on the hesitation.
Yes.
35 seconds starting now.
Ring of Bright Water was a particularly sad film. I watched it when I was 11.
Ross challenge.
Repetition of film.
Yes, you mentioned the film before. So Ross, the correct challenge. You've got in with 31 seconds on tearjerkers starting now.
Tearjerkers are people who like to spoil wedding cakes. That's right. They walk up, take the middle section of that particular cake, and then whip it back like that. Very good. And there'll be a bride at the other side turning round, and she will see what has happened to that lovely piece of confectionery-style eating type cake. Stop.
Tony's challenge.
I think it was repetition of piece of cake earlier, and then that piece of confectionery style thing you didn't want to avoid.
Oh, you're good.
Quite true, but they loved it, didn't they? So his improvisation was brilliant, but he didn't keep him going. And 12 seconds available for you, Tony, on tearjerkers starting now.
The Wizard of Oz is a movie which made Clement cry, and why not the Tin Man himself when he walked down past Dorothy, his lovely metal stuff jangling.
So Tony Hawks speaking as the whistle went. The other points, he's now moving forward. He's only 2 behind on Ida Clement Freud, 1 ahead of Ross Noble, and 2 or 3 more ahead of Jenny Eclair. That's the sequence as Clement begins the next round, which is recycling. Clement, tell us something about recycling in just a minute, starting now.
Recycling, I would like to remind listeners of the Tour de France, which is a sensationally exciting race involving bicycles that go all over France.
Ross challenge.
No, they follow a specific route.
Very good challenge, but I think that I've got to give the benefit of the doubt to Clement and say you have recycling still, and you have 46 seconds starting now.
There are, in some villages and towns, also cities, bins made of either rubber or wood, even metal, which are for recycling. It says tin, cardboard, paper, rubbish. Excellent people who really care about the environment and have the well-being of their neighbours at heart. Recycle like you wouldn't guess.
Jenny challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, I agree with that one, Jenny. So there was a hesitation. You have recycling. You have 10 seconds starting now.
Domestically, I'm not much of a recycler. I start off with great intentions. The next thing I know, there are 592 empty wine bottles in my hall.
So Jenny Eclair got the point for speaking as the whistle went, as well as others in the round. She's moved forward. So, Ross, I think it's your turn to begin. So would you take the final round, which is My Early Years? Tell us something about your early years, starting now.
I was a little bit like Lord Greystoke. I was brought up by monkeys, and that's unusual for people to believe in the Newcastle area, but there are quite a lot of wild simians in that particular vicinity. There were many occasions where I remember my early years, like the time my father took me to St James's Park, wrapped up in a hat and a scarf, and that's where I got my dream of being a knitwear model. We would go down And it was a ridiculous thing, though, really, considering that we were monkeys and we had... I've said monkeys twice.
So, Tony, you interrupted the flow, yes.
Repetition monkeys?
Yes, monkey, yes, right. And you have 16 seconds available. My early years are starting now.
There were marked similarities between my early years and my later years. Each were 365 days in length.
Clement challenge.
Leap year. Some of them were 366.
Yeah, but he might have been going on to say that, mightn't he?
No.
It's a difficult decision because, no, he said some of them 365 days each. Each year in between.
Each of them were, yes. Let's give it to Clement, shall we?
I think he's dead keen to have it. He's just in the lead. He's now gone further in the lead. 7 seconds. My early years, Clement, starting now.
My early years were really a very long time ago, by virtue of the fact that my late years are upon me now.
I said a little while ago it was to be the last round, so the final situation is to say how they all finished up. But let me say before we start, they're all winners, but one will have most points, and we give him an extra round of applause. In fourth place was Jenny Eclair. She was just behind Ross Noble. He was 4 points behind Tony Hawkes, and he was only 3 points behind Clement Freud. So, Clement, you are a judge to be out in the lead and get that extra special round of applause. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Jenny Eclair, Ross Noble, Tony Hawkes and Clement Freud. And we are very grateful to this lovely Essex audience here in the Palace Theatre at Westcliff-on-Sea. So our lovely audience, send it out in a round of applause from me, Nicholas Parsons. Tune in the next time we all play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my great pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, those who tune into Radio 4, the World Service, BBC 7, or on the internet. Welcome to the show, and it's a huge pleasure to welcome the 4 exciting, talented, and experienced players of the game who've joined us for this particular show. It's always a joy to have back that outstanding comedian, that stalwart of the show, whose contributions are invaluable. That is Paul Merton. It's always a pleasure to have on the show a man whose contributions in the comedy world are one of our youngest great successful comedians and a great contributor to Just a Minute. That is Ross Noble. It's also a pleasure to have someone who hasn't played it quite as frequent as the others, but is so marvellous when he does, and it's so successful up here in Edinburgh, and that is Julian Clary. And always a pleasure to have someone who's been playing the game consistently almost since the day it started. In fact, since the day it started, the ever-resourceful Clement Freud. Please welcome all 4 of them. On a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Besides me sits Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep a score. She'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from Edinburgh. And we're in the Pleasance courtyard. And we have a wonderful festival fringe audience in front of us who queued ages to get their tickets. And they're just eager and excited to get going. They're throbbing with it out there. So let's start the show with Clement Freud. Clement, the subject is breaking records. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I came up on a train from London, which was indeed breaking records. It braked coming into Stevenage, and then again applied the brakes on the way to Huntingdon. At Peterborough, you'll be amazed how it broke. Doncaster, York were other locations. on which the driver applied the restrictive practices known as slowing down the train, whereafter we entered York, Dunbar, Edinburgh.
Full challenge.
Repetition of York?
Yes, we've had York before,
We've
yes.
had York?
Yes.
Ah.
Or is it one of those special trains that goes through York twice? It's a cheaper ticket. It takes longer. It's a cheaper ticket.
It goes longer, yes. It didn't get on to Newcastle. But anyway, Paul, you have a correct challenge. So in this game, you get a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject. There are 30 seconds available. Breaking records starting now.
There's all sorts of dangerous records that used to be recorded in the Guinness Book of such things, but now a lot of them have been discontinued because they were considered just a little bit too frightening for human beings to indulge in. For example, there was the record that I believe was held by Mr. William Franklin of Gloucester, who managed to eat 47 pizzas in the space of 35 years, because he didn't really like them very much. And so it was the slowest number of Italian food base ever eaten by anybody wherever out the humankind.
Wait a minute, Clement challenge just before the whistle.
He has repeated eaten.
Yes, he'd eaten. He did.
It wouldn't be much of a record if he hadn't.
But to be fair within the rules of just a minute, you did repeat it, and Clement pressed his buzzer before the thing. He didn't win any friends for doing that, but he's got a point for a correct challenge. He takes over the subject. There's half a second to go, Clement. I know. Breaking records starting now. In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Clement Freud, so you won't be surprised to know that he is in the lead at the end of that round, followed by Paul Merton, and the other two have yet to score. But Ross Noble, we'd like you to take the next round, and the subject now is Chipmunks. Tell us something about... Don't know why you laugh. It's quite a good subject to talk on. He's had a few seconds to think about it. Start now.
Chipmunks are holy men that worship fried food. They have a special order in Scotland, funnily enough, where they gather themselves around a chippy, as it's known in these parts, or a friary is another way of describing that. Sometimes you might find that they will get a small packet of crisps and scatter them around on the floor, dancing around with their holy robes all over the place, dancing like fools.
Paul challenge.
Two dancing.
Yes, you were dancing.
Was
too
it
much.
not dance and dancing?
No. Everybody's trying that trick on me, but...
And I would have got away with it too if it hadn't been for you, Merton.
I tell you what I think we should do, because in the middle of your delivery then, they gave you a round of applause for some particular remark you made, and I think that deserves a bonus point.
It's quite good as well, because it covered the fact that I was just going blah, blah, blah.
But in this game, you have to keep going through your applause. You can't play the audience, you know.
But I repeated blah at least 5 times. Can I challenge myself and have another point?
I thought it was an affliction.
Anyway, Paul, you had a correct challenge, and there are 30 seconds still available. Tell us something about Chipmunks, starting now.
There was a popular group in the 1950s in America called the Chipmunks, and basically it was a man who used to use speeded-up human voice to give the impression that chipmunks are actually singing, because chipmunks don't sing at all. They're a very quiet creature, nocturnal creatures, in fact. Creatures, what's the pronoun? Creatures.
No.
Let's see the colour of the challenge. Creatures.
It was in the singular each time, and Julian, you got in first. Right. And... What?
Have you finally lost it?
Julian, with your reputation, I'm afraid it's so difficult to say things sometimes.
What reputation?
Right. There are 18 seconds. We're going to hear from you. No, that's not funny. 18 seconds for you to talk on Chipmunks, starting now. Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
You didn't even give him a chance to catch breath. An incorrect challenge, Julian. You have 17 and a half seconds. Chipmunks, starting now.
I've got an awful lot in common with chipmunks. We both like nuts and they have bulging cheeks. If you know what I'm saying. Apart from that, there's not a lot to say. They're little furry creatures that hop around and they climb trees. Although when I think about it,
Ross challenge.
They don't strictly hop. They're more scamper.
Yeah, but in a hopping motion.
Yes.
I use the term loosely.
I was...
Ask Nicholas, he'll know.
Yes, I do.
Go on, Nicholas, you know, do they hop or do they just scamper? What do they do?
I have to make a decision. They are capable of hopping and scampering and jumping and climbing, and they're capable of doing anything. They're little chipmunks.
Anything?
Playing the trombone?
Can they operate a lathe?
Yeah. Can they hold a career down in the civil service and get promotion?
A small hat shop?
Can they host a children's programme about barges?
No. In physical movement, they can walk, run, hop, jump, they climb trees, they can do the lot.
But I bet you wish you were a chipmunk, didn't you? Get a chipmunk hosting this show, get a better job out of it.
I would normally give you a bonus.
There's no good booing him, he's doing his best. Creature and creatures, I know what I'm doing. I've been playing this game 15 years.
Right. Paul is working so hard for bonus points. Give him a bonus point because the audience enjoyed what he did. But...
Well, thank you very much. I got one friend.
But, Julian, you were not deviating and in any sense.
I was challenged.
You were challenged, yes. Oh. But it was Julian was speaking,
that's right.
So it was an incorrect challenge. Paul got the bonus point because of what he did and said. You interrupted.
I've lost the will to live.
He doesn't care about chipmunks. I had a lot to say about chipmunks. And the subject was taken off me.
I have to be fair with the rules of just a minute or I get these... I don't want any more letters explaining I wasn't fair in a decision. So, Chipmunks is still with you, Julian, and there are 10 seconds available starting now.
They leap and scamper from tree to tree and...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of tree.
There were too many trees. You mentioned tree before.
That's silly of me.
And tree, yes.
I should have known.
Yes. No, it's so easy. That's a natural... What's happened, Jenny? You've got a problem here. You've got watch is going wrong. Oh, we can't have the stopwatch is going wrong. Oh, yes, it's going all right now. It's going the wrong way.
Does that mean I've got infinity?
I would
talk about chipmunks. Well, I'm the man for the job. Keep going till 1957.
Is it working again now, Janet? It's the first time, actually, Janet has spoken on radio since she's been with us for 12 years. And we've got 6 seconds on Chipmunks with you, Paul, starting now.
A nocturnal, bisexual creature. They're very popular at parties. If you turn up at somebody's front door, a chipmunk under your arm, you'll be welcomed in.
So Paul Merton speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point. He's now taken the lead. He's one ahead of a Julian Clary, he's one ahead of Clement Freud, who's one ahead of Norton in that order. And Julian, it's your turn to begin. The subject is my reputation. 60 seconds starting now.
I have a reputation as a bespoke Nancy boy and renowned homosexual, which makes it particularly difficult when I go out to meet girls. I hang around discotheques. The other day, I met a dental receptionist called Sonia. I invited her back to my luxury home called Show Business Lodge. She spread herself out on the sofa, and then she said, "Hang on a minute, aren't you that puff off the telly?" I said, "No, you're mixing me up with someone else, possibly Dale Winton." "No," she said, I want you now, big boy."
I'm sure she said that, but unfortunately, in just a minute, you can't repeat it. So, just let me hear your challenge.
Repetition of I want.
I want, yes, yeah, right. Paul, you've got in on the subject of my reputation with 27 seconds available, starting now.
Surly but fair, I think, is how a lot of people see me. I was once at the Comedy Store doing a show with the players then. I went down the steps about 20 minutes before everybody else, and somebody told me, as they were following me down, another person...
Ross challenge.
Repetition of down?
Yes, you went down the steps and then you went down. Right. So, Ross, you got in on the subject. You have 15 seconds. My reputation starting now.
I have to protect my reputation as a dandy and a man about town and have to cultivate it very heavily because I'm not. I'm essentially a bloke who sits around in a beanbag eating miniature pizza biscuits in my pants.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of around. Around town sits around the beanbag.
I'm afraid
fair
so, yes. Fair dues. So Paul's got in with... can I clear my throat? You can cut it out.
Cut your throat.
Let's have a show of hands. All those who want Nicholas to cut his throat, put your hand. I've never seen... That's a forest. I call that a forest.
I never thought the audience would be so mean. Do you want Nicholas to cut his throat? And they all laugh. Oh, dear, Paul. Right, you have the subject of my reputation. 3 seconds starting now.
Handsome, cheap, sultry, with a little hint of exotica.
Paul Merton again, speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and he's increased his lead at the end of the round. And Paul, it's also your turn to begin. The subject now is legends. Tell us something about Legends in just a minute, starting now.
Legends is a nightclub in Streatham, and I was there recently to see Sir Clement Freud's one-man tribute to Robbie Williams. What a fantastic night out. For me, the highlight was undoubtedly Let Me Entertain You. I thought it was a wonderful piece of music. The crowd was sunny. It was fantastic. The dance routine I've never seen. No, break dance, it's got nothing in it. Oh, it was dance routine, break dance. What's going on?
Julian challenged her.
Yes, was it repetition or was it not?
No.
It wasn't.
Dance, break dancing, dance, break dancing.
Dance and dancing.
No, I just thought it was time I spoke.
38 seconds on Legends, starting now.
One of the greatest legends in the history of cinema.
Clement challenge.
Second greatest legend.
Not greatest, it was great then.
Greatest.
Right.
So, are you challenging for non-repetition? It was a very good show. I don't know how you managed it.
Actually, I don't think you repeated greatest. I think you did repeat great.
No.
That's right.
Yes, no, yeah. Very good chairman.
That's right.
Best chairman we've ever had on this show. Best chairman.
36 seconds, Paul. Legend starting now.
Buster Keaton was a silent film comedian who made a lot of movies in the 1920s. These days, perhaps he's most remembered is a film called The General. It was made in 1926.
And Clement challenge.
Repetition of 20.
Yes, you did have the 20s.
20s?
20s.
20s and 20. Aren't they two words? Two words, 20s.
No,
we
just 1920, and that was 20s,
Well,
Paul.
I mean, 20 sounds like 20s, but it sort of stops. It hasn't got the ambition. 20 and 20s?
20s and 20 are different.
You said 1920,
Yeah.
and then you said 1926. It's a repeat of 20.
Repetition of 19, but not of 20.
Yeah. Clement, you're persistent. You've got it. 26 seconds on Legend starting now.
There is a legend that Edinburgh used to be called Glasgow. This is not one to which I subscribe enormously, because Inverness, Aberdeen and St Andrews all have excellent claims for that honour, and I'm enormously proud to be here.
Paul Chance.
Well, this is absolute rubbish.
Legends are rubbish on the whole.
Oh, I don't think so. What about the legend of Robin Hood?
Rubbish.
So I think we've got to give the benefit of the doubt to Clement and say, though I think it's utterly untrue, there could be a legend somewhere which says it is.
OK.
And I think it's strange, but there we are.
OK.
And we have to give the benefit of the doubt to Clement. 10 seconds, Legends, Clement, starting now.
The legend of Robin Hood is very popular. He and his religious advisor, the Spoonerist Friar Tuck, is very close to my heart.
So Clement Freud, speaking as a whistle, gained that extra point, and he's now still in second place, but he's got points already. Julian, Clary and Crossnow will follow him, but Paul Merton still in the lead. But Clement, it happens to be your turn to begin, and the subject now is courtesy. Tell us something about courtesy in just a minute, starting now.
When I was a Boy Scout many years ago, the laws of that organisation could be summed up as honour, loyalty, beauty, brotherly, courteous, kind, obedient, smiling, thrifty, clean in body and mind. Courtesy is what I was most keen on. Old ladies who didn't want to cross the streets hadn't a chance when I was there in my uniform. I would push them over to the other side of the road while they protested. This was considered courtesy in the 1930s. I have not come across it a lot lately. Nobody stands up for me on a train. Hardly anyone on a bus, which could be because I don't use that kind of transport. That's enough. Paul,
you were the first to challenge.
Hesitation?
Yes, indeed. A full stop, actually. Right, 15 seconds. courtesy with you, Paul, starting now.
I remember when I was travelling around Australia in 1987, I'd broken my leg here at the Edinburgh Festival and I had a walking stick and I was travelling about on buses and I expected at least one person at some point to stand up and say, "You can have my seat," but no, I had to hobble around that...
So Paul Merton's going like the clappers and is now way out in the lead, ahead of Clement, Freud, Ross, Noble and Julian, Clary in that order. And Ross, your turn to begin. The subject is a sharp tongue. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
A sharp tongue is one of the problems with snogging robots. I find on a regular basis, whenever I've been down the discotheque and picked up a Terminator and we find ourselves in an alleyway, oh, the pain, you wouldn't believe it, especially if you've just enjoyed a nice bag of chips and they're all vinegary, as you're putting your lovely...
Julian, you've challenged.
Did he trip over his words a little bit? And was that...
Well, I had a metal tongue in my mouth. It's all cut with a vinegary thing.
No,
hesitation.
I don't think he tripped enough to be called that hesitation. He was dribbling a little on his words, but they were coming out. And so, no, you have the benefit of the doubt. Ross, a sharp tongue still with you, 40 seconds starting now.
My mother had a sharp tongue, but that's because it was made entirely of lemon. She was involved in a bizarre scientific experiment where they were trying to create the ultimate fruity human being. What happened was the scientist took some Jif and injected it into her leg. Unfortunately, it seeped up into her head and came out in the tongue department. Who would have thought it as she shouted at us as children, spitting that juicy substance towards us, landing on our tongues, which had already been cut from doing lovely kissing with the cyborgs from the future. The agony was immense. I couldn't believe it. Get back...
The agony
Is it all right if I have a lie down?
But that's it. The agony was immense when we were talking about the agony of keeping going under the pressure that exists in this game, because you got just 1 point for speaking as the whistle went, and you're still in third place. I can't give him half a dozen points for that.
I'm not very well.
You're still behind Clement Freud, but one ahead of Julian Clary, that's all. Paul's still in the lead, and Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is gnomes. Tell us something about gnomes in just a minute, starting now.
Well, it's the bum side of the fairy world, isn't it, really, the gnome? It's not like a pixie or an elf. It's an ugly-looking creature that sits at the end of your garden. I recently got married to the wonderful Sarah, who collects chairs. I don't know why she goes to these auctions and buys so many of them. We've got about 34 of them at the moment, all different types, none of them match. But the gnomes...
Clement, challenge.
3 thems.
Oh, yes, sharp challenge. Oh, yes, you got one of those sort of...
Your Robbie Williams show was rubbish. More like Shirley Williams. It was, wasn't it? I walked out halfway through.
Well, it was at least the same political party anyway. Clement, a correct challenge, 42 seconds, and gnomes starting now.
Gnomes is spelt with a G. After which...
Paul challenge.
Well, not just with a G. There's an N, there's an O, there's... Oh, no, I could go on.
I know, but let's be fair. He spelled with a G, but we didn't know whether he was going to go on, say, N-O-M-E-S or not. But so...
There was a hesitation there, definitely.
That's too late now, Paul. You can't have secondary challenges.
Wasn't that implicit in... Oh, yeah, well...
All right, no.
It doesn't matter.
No, what I'm going to do is, because the audience enjoyed what you said, we give you a bonus point for that. Clement keeps the subject for being interrupted.
Yep.
He has gnomes still, and 38 seconds starting now. And you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Absolutely right. I think Clement was being generous and made sure he did hesitate. So in you go on 37 seconds. Gnomes with you, Paul, starting now.
Gnomes don't have any nipples. I don't know why that should be, because in other ways they're perfectly physically, anatomically correct creatures. What wonderful beings they are. As they sit there near the compost, looking up with their beady little eyes, sometimes holding a fishing rod, sometimes doing an impression of...
Clement, challenge.
2 sometimes.
2 sometimes, yes. I don't think you should clap unless it's Paul, because I must explain to our listeners, Clement, who's sitting beside Paul, was looking at him with his finger on his buzzer right under his nose, intimidating him, but he did very well to keep going. And
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
No, you know, not in this show, but
Not
you've
in
done
this
it in
show,
the
but
past.
no.
Right. And Clement, you have the subject, and you have 22 seconds. Gnomes starting now.
If someone were to ask you what...
Audience, this is radio, so I have to explain. Paul intimidated Clement even more by undoing his shirt front. In fact, we were all intimidated, including the audience. They're all shouting in the back, do it up again, please.
He hasn't got any nipples.
I am a gnome.
And Ross, you were the one to challenge first. Hesitation, yes, indeed, that's right. And 19 seconds for you on Gnomes, starting now.
They sit there with their beards and their little fishing rods. In fact, they survive entirely on a diet of seafood. Not many people realise that Captain Birdseye was, in fact, from gnome stock. He had that particular facial hair, but sadly he grew too big and was cast aside and forced to travel the 7 seas, plying his...
I don't think a round's ever gone so long in his life before. Ross Noble speaking as a whistle went. With other points, he's now equal with Clement in second place. He a few ahead of Julian, Clary, and 1 or 2 behind Paul Merton, who's still in the lead. And that is the situation as we go into the final round. Clement, it's your turn to begin, and the subject now is fighting the Flab. I don't know why they've given it to you, but talk on the subject if you can, starting now.
Flab, I believe, is an acronym for Federation of Lithuanian Accordion Bands, or possibly Fraternity of Latin American Bastards. But also, if you think about it, Flab is avoirdupois. It is the extra weight possibly around your waist and chin, and Dr. Atkins is currently the man to fight it.
Paul challenged.
Isn't he dead? Didn't he die about 6 months ago? Then he can't be currently the man to fight it.
Yes.
Well, I think, actually, colloquially speaking, he was conveying the Atkins diet is probably the way to fight it. So I think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I understood what he meant.
Yes.
He didn't actually specifically say, Dr.
Atkins is the man to fight. He didn't actually specifically say that, did he?
He didn't specifically...
He didn't specifically say, Dr. Atkins is the man to fight it. The fact he's dead, you didn't understand that, that's fine.
No, I understood
I mean,
it,
he's
Paul.
losing weight day by day, I agree.
I understood it, Paul.
You understood it?
Yes.
Is that the litmus test, is it?
Yes, that's... Paul, no, he didn't say that Dr. Atkins was dead. I mean, we know he's dead, but...
I know. He said Dr. Atkins is the man.
Is the man, right? He meant the Atkins diet. I understood that. The audience understood it. The listeners probably understood it. I'm sorry you didn't understand it. Clement, you have the subject. You have 35 seconds and a point, of course, fighting the Flab, starting now.
As the audience understands it so well, there'll be no need for me to elaborate on the good medical physicians' American ideas of losing pounds.
Paul challenged.
That was a hesitation.
Yeah,
That was a hesitation.
Yeah.
You've got in, Paul, so you want it, and you want the subject, I mean, and you want... 24 seconds, fighting the Flab, starting now.
I question the acronym Federation of Latin American Bastards because I think if you were of that type, why would you join a club? Surely there's something you want to keep quiet if you were born in Peru and you didn't...
Julian challenged.
Aren't we deviating from the subject?
Yes, indeed you are.
It's a lottery, this, isn't it, really?
It's a delicate decision for me every time, but I have
you
to
always get it wrong.
I try to be fair within the rules of just a minute and to be fair for everybody. And, Julian, you have the benefit of the doubt if there is one. And it is fighting the Flab, 14 seconds, starting now.
One of the most successful ways to fight the Flab is to exercise. Get up in the morning, put on a pair of jaunty shorts and some shoes and socks and hop round the block on one leg. You'll soon find your sweat falling from your brow and the calories will...
So, as I said a moment ago, we had no more time to play, just a minute, so that was the last round, and we finished up in a very interesting situation, and that is that Clement Freud, Ross Noble and Julian Clary are all equal in second place. You are no doubt clapping their contributions, which is more important than the points they gain. But Paul Merton did get more points again, so he finishes up with what we call the winner. A round of applause for Paul Merton. And it only remains thank you to these four fine, exciting and intrepid players of the game. Paul Merton, Ross Noble, Julian Clary and Clement Freud. I thank Janet Staplehurst, who's helped me keep the score. She's blown her whistle so delicately. We thank our producer, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game. And we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here at the Pleasance on the Fringe in Edinburgh, who've cheered us on our way. They seem to have enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it. From me, Nicholas Parsons, from our audience, from our panel, goodbye. Tune in the next time. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons. And as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my immense pleasure to welcome our many listeners who tune in to Radio 4, the World Service, BBC 7, and also, of course, on the internet. All around the world, welcome listeners. And also, it's a huge pleasure to welcome the four talented, exciting, and outstanding personalities who are going to play Just a Minute today. It's always a pleasure to welcome back that supreme comedian, one of the stalwarts of Just a Minute, who's back with us again, and that is Paul Merton. We also have one of the stalwarts of the game in the sense that he's been with us since the show began, and one of the most consistent regulars, and the ever resourceful and entertaining Clement Freud. And we have someone who's only been with us once or twice before, but has been so successful. We're thrilled to have him back. An American, a stand-up comedian, works a lot in this country now. That is Greg Proops. And we also have someone who's never been on Just a Minute before. So that is a challenge for him. And he is an outstanding comedian who's doing very well in Edinburgh this year. He comes from Dublin originally. He now works mostly in this country. And that is Dara O'Brien. Please welcome all four of them. As usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Besides me sits Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score. She'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from Edinburgh. We're up here once again during the festival. And we're at the Pleasance, one of the venues here, and we have a wonderful, excited festival fringe audience in front of us who are really hyped up, eager to get going. They've waited a long time to get in. They want to get the show started. So we'll start straight away with a very topical subject. Paul, it's called fringe benefits. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Well, it's wonderful, isn't it, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival? You get so many marvellously talented comedians up here. You can meet many of them by standing on the Royal Mile, where they'll hand you a leaflet advertising their show. And if you take those leaflets home, you can turn...
Clement, you challenge.
Repetition of leaflets.
Yes, you had too many leaflets.
No, I had leaflet and leaflets.
You did indeed, Paul. Thank you for drawing my attention to it. Right.
Anytime I can help, it's a pleasure. Can I say how well you're looking?
Thank you very much. Paul, so that was actually an incorrect challenge. So you get a point for an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject. 49 seconds still available. Fringe benefits starting now.
Mould them into the shape of a tree or a Volkswagen, and it will always be a memento of the marvellous time you spent on the Fringe. Of course, one of the other benefits attached to this marvellous...
Greg, you challenge.
No, I'm not sure, but I think he used the singular of marvellous twice.
No, he said how marvellous it was before.
No, the second one was marvellous.
Yeah. You wish it had been, but it wasn't. Right, Greg, you've got a correct challenge. You have a point for that, of course. You have 39 seconds. You take over. Fringe benefits starting now.
The Edinburgh Fringe is both exhilarating and exciting, insomuch as comedians can ply their trade in front of crowds in various states of inebriation and having consumed fried goods, the likes of which are not seen outside of the Edinburgh area.
And Dara, you've challenged.
He did say Edinburgh twice, didn't he?
You see, Dara, a newcomer, you got the audience with you right away. There we are.
I'm leaving now. My job here is done.
No, you wait till I say now before you start, Dara.
Well, I wasn't going to start. I was actually literally going to leave now.
So you have a correct challenge in the first round. Good to hear from you, Dara. And you have 21 seconds, and the subject is fringe benefits, and you start now.
There are, of course, many ancillary benefits to working in Edinburgh for the month of August, not least the fantastic effect it has on your calves, because it's very difficult to get from A to B in Edinburgh without passing through...
Greg, your challenge.
I believe there was repetition of the word Edinburgh.
There was indeed, yes. It's a difficult game, isn't it, Dara? I've explained to our listeners, I have two on my left and two on my right, and Dara and Greg are sitting side by side, so they pick up the Edinburgh much quicker than the other two did. Right,
Can you hear us over there?
Not yet.
5 to 11.
Right, 5 to 11. You may laugh, you work in radio. The listeners like to have a visual image of how we are placed.
Then they shouldn't be listening to the radio, then. No good to you at all.
I seem to be emanating from right above someone's kitchen sink right now.
Right, fine. Well, you have the subject of fringe benefits. You've got a point for that, Greg, and you have 14 seconds to speak on it, starting now.
The Royal Mile is one of the most exciting parts of the city that is the capital of Scotland. Of course, I'm not...
Who, John? Paul?
There's a hesitation there.
There was a hesitation, yes. You having got round saying Edinburgh a second time, you thought, oh, you were carried away, and you paused.
I like to think of it as a dramatic representation of it. Sharp intake of breath in my surprise at having thought of something clever.
That's exactly what happened. And I'm afraid on Just a Minute you can't allow it because they're far too quick nowadays. Right. So, Paul, you have a correct challenge and you have fringe benefits back with you. 9 seconds starting now.
Hairdressers make a lot of money by selling offcuts to mattress manufacturers. And what they do is they stuff these bed linen with all kinds of different...
In this game, as probably everybody knows by now, but whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. And on this occasion it was Paul Merton who started with the subject, finished with it, and at the end of the round he's the one who's in the lead, quite naturally. Right, Greg, your turn to begin. Greg Proops. Subject is barbecues. Can you tell us something about barbecues in Just a Minute, starting now?
Barbecues are a great tradition in the land of my origin. Whether deep in the South and it's just some hush puppies and coleslaw, baked beans, watermelon, pecan pie with hand-cranked vanilla ice cream, or out in the Southwest, whether it's...
Who challenged? Paul, yes.
Rotation of South.
You had South before, and the South, and now you had Southwest.
I think you'll find Southwest is an entirely different word than South.
I think it's hyphenated, but in radio, it's what you say. And you said South, you repeated South, so I'm afraid I have to give it against you, Greg.
Well, I acquiesce to Paul's ledger domain.
But can I ask you, do you really barbecue hush puppies?
They're delicious if you get the sole cooked just right.
Right. Paul, you have a correct challenge. You have 44 seconds. You have... No, not hush puppies. You have barbecues. And 44 seconds, starting now.
I would never put hush puppies on a barbecue, but you might as well, because often when you go to one of these barbecues, the food tastes appalling, as if you should be standing outside in all kinds of weather, watching some poor devil trying to grill a half-eaten looking sausage on some terrible arrangement. It's awful. The charcoal smell, it just burns. Everybody says, is it done yet? Yes, it's completely black. And then they all stand around and wonder why they've got indigestion. Barbecues aren't right at all, I think, because...
Greg, you've challenged.
I don't really have one. I accidentally hit the buzzer.
What we do there is, it was an incorrect challenge.
It was, yes.
So Paul, because he's interrupted, gets a point. All that happens, you're giving points to the others in the panel here. Paul, another point to you, and 19 seconds, barbecues starting now.
I suppose a lot of it's to
do... Clement challenge.
You have presupposed.
You like Clement. So what is your challenge within the rules of Just a Minute?
Repetition, he supposed last time.
Oh, yes, you did indeed.
Did I?
Yes, he did. Yes.
So, Clement, you have the correct subject. I mean, a correct subject. Have a correct challenge. 19-second barbecue starting now.
Haggis, sporran, and lightly tossed cabers are what I would like to put on my barbecue. It makes the whole garden smell of roses.
And Paul challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, there was. It was thinking of those
of roses.
Yes, and he was thinking, I think of those cabers on his barbecue. Right. There are 7 seconds available still on barbecues. Paul, starting now.
I remember my father in the summer of 1976 determined to put together one of the finest barbecues ever seen by man.
So, Paul Merton speaking then as a whistle when gained that extra point. At the end of that round, he's increased his lead over the other 3. And Dara, we'd like you to take the next subject.
Thank you very much.
And it is children's presenters. And you have 60 seconds as usual. Tell us something about them in this game, starting now.
Thank you for easing me in on this one. I myself, as you well know, used to be a children's television presenter, and it's a mistaken presumption that children's television presenters are all happy and clappy and primary colours and dungarees and sweetness and light, and they're not. It's a savage viper's nest of ambition and Machiavelli. They will kill each other just to get the next gig on. They all dream of being Cat Dealey or the next Ant and Dec. They will stab each other in the eye with a fork rather than let the next person get the gig above them. And that's not to talk about the children who are themselves evil and wrong. I worked at the coalface with them for 3 years. My God, I wanted to throttle some of them. The special ones used to come in a big group going, Tamara, Tamara, I love you, Tamara. Yeah. And yes, there was repetition of the word tomorrow, but I'm glad I got it off my chest.
And for the first time you've taken a subject in just a minute, you win for 37 seconds.
Thank you very much. You're very kind.
But they couldn't let that tomorrow and tomorrow go, and Clement, you were the first one to buzz, and so you have the subject, and you have 23 seconds available. Children's presenters starting now.
When I was very young, I was told that the children's presenter was a stork, and I believe that. It came from a huge nest, flew through the sky holding babies for deserving parents. And it seemed a much more sensible and clean thing with which to present an unborn child than what? Shouldn't the whistle have blown?
Yes, you saw Janet pick up the whistle and thought, I'm all right now. Unfortunately, you should have kept going for another half second. Because Paul got in first, and we know what it was, hesitation, and Paul, half a second on children presenters, starting now.
Valerie Singleton was a wonderful woman. She appeared on
So Paul getting all those extra points. He seems to be speaking always when the whistle goes. He's leapt forward, and he got a stronger lead over the other 3, who are training a little, but they're all equal in second and third place. They can't be equal in second and third place, but they're equal in second place. Right. Clement, we're in Edinburgh. And the subject we've got now... Yes.
Have you had a sudden flash?
No. Somebody might just have tuned in at that moment.
Ah, yes.
Right. And the subject now is Ulriki. So would you, please, Clement, tell us something about Ulriki in this game starting now?
I believe old is spelled A-U-L-D, but pronounced old nevertheless. I personally come from the south of this British Isles in which we live, and all I know about Ulriki is that it used to be a description of the evil smells that emanate from the barbecues of Edinburgh. Sporrans, haggises, lightly tossed cabers, all sorts of evil people who set themselves on fire and taint the sky so that nasally the intake of really unpleasant odours manifests itself throughout this southern part of Scotland and, for all I know, further distant places like Aberdeen and Tipperary, not to mention Tunbridge Wells and Maidstone, but Ulriki it is, and here we are, and bless...
Well, that hasn't happened for a while. Someone starting with a subject and keeping going for the full 60 seconds without being interrupted and without hesitating repetition or deviation. And not only gets a bonus point for speaking as a whistle went, but he gets a bonus point for the full 60 seconds. So, Clement, you have leapt forward. You're now in a strong second position behind Paul Merton. And for our listeners who are interested, not only was Clement right about the smoke and everything which came from the fires, that's why it was called Riki, but also from the ghastly smells that came from what is now the Royal Gardens near Princes Street, because that used to be a loch where they threw all their rubbish and their filth and their dirt, and that was added to it, and that's what made it old and reek. You couldn't care less, could you? Right. I think I'm actually playing for time here because the next subject... I think someone's got something... they're going to have a go at me from outside, but the subject on front of me is Sale of the Century. I'm dreading this, and it's Paul who's going to speak on the subject. Yeah, I think you're already on the wavelength. So, Paul, Sale of the Century, 60 seconds, starting now.
The sale of the 16th century was undoubtedly the Armada. They came towards Britain, their ships full of angry Spaniards. Sir Francis Drake was playing bowls at Plymouth, and suddenly somebody came up to him and said, "Here, look over there, there's a great bunch of ships coming towards us." And so he dropped what he was doing and he ran down towards the coast, and he quickly constructed a raft out of a destroyed ship and sailed...
Greg, challenge.
I believe you repeated the word ship.
Ships.
He said ships before.
Well, I thought there was three ship. There was a ship, a ships, and then a ship again.
No,
am I wrong?
It was ships. He had ships when he talked about Francis Drake and his ships. I'm sorry, Greg. Good attempt. But it wasn't accurate. So, Sale of the Century is still with you, Paul. 36 seconds available starting now.
Has there ever been a more ridiculous quotation on television? And now, live from Norwich, the quiz of the week. What a ridiculous farrago it was throughout the 1970s.
Dara challenge.
That was ridiculous twice, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was it? Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yes, it was.
so.
Yes.
Well, listen.
I wasn't listening.
I'm not proud.
I've heard it before.
He did repeat ridiculous, and you got 27 seconds. You tell us something about Sale of the Century starting now.
Sale of the Century seemed to paint a wonderful picture of England, which is an unusual thing for Irish people to think, because it seemed to give an impression that in England you could buy a fridge or a car.
And
Paul challenge.
Two Englands.
Two Englands.
Two Englands, yes.
And there are, apparently.
Yes.
Yes, right. So, Paul, you got in again. 19 seconds. Tell us more about Sale of the Century, starting now.
The befuddled quizmaster would sit in the middle as various greedy pensioners from around the British Isles would say, "I'll have the kettle for £5, the Volkswagen for £6, and I have Aberdeen for 24.
Clement challenge.
3 4s.
Yes. For 6, for 4, for Aberdeen, for so forth, yes. It's a bit of a tough challenge, but it was correct, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But he was determined to get in. He's determined to get in on Sale of the Century, so 8 seconds for you, Clement, on Sale of the Century, starting now.
The sale of the last century was certainly Robin Knox Johnson sailing around the world in a small boat, which he...
So Clement Freud was in, speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. He's now just a few points behind our leader, Paul Merton, and Dara, Brian and Greg Proops are equal in third place. Greg Proops.
Yes, Nicholas.
Your turn to begin.
It's nice to hear me back on the show.
You've hardly been away. And you have 60 seconds as usual. The subject now is a stiff upper lip. Tell us something. No, I give you...
I know, but I'm always waiting to get nailed for hesitation, so I feel extra anxious and I want to jump in right away.
That's why I say now, so that they eliminate that.
I don't follow directions well, Nicholas.
Well, stiff upper lip with you, Greg, starting now. Yes, Paul, what was your challenge?
Hesitation.
Wicked so-and-so, no. I tell you what we do, because the audience enjoyed that so much, give Paul a bonus point, because he did it more for fun than to be serious within the rules of the game. And, Greg, you get a point because you were interrupted. You still have a stiff upper lip. You have 59 3/4 of a second. Starting now.
Being from the United States, a stiff upper lip is not something that I'm entirely used to, because where I'm from, we're emotional and...
Dara challenge.
Yeah, is from twice?
Yes, there was a from twice. My gosh, you're listening sharp, aren't you?
Aren't I? Yeah.
He's picked it up quick, hasn't he? I thought I'd let that one go.
So those are some of the sharp challenges.
I still don't understand the deviation rule. I mean, in his 60 seconds about old Ricky, he ended up in Tunbridge Wells at one stage. I thought I'd let that one go.
No, you were right. You're playing it with a sharp, incisive attitude.
I'm being picky, aren't I? That's what you're trying to say.
It's good. But you're getting points and you're getting into it. Right, Dara. So 50 seconds. You tell us something about a stiff upper lip starting now.
It's not...
Full challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah. I'm afraid there was, but as it is the very first time he's played the game, I'm going to be generous to Dara and say, Paul, you have a point for a correct challenge. Dara, you have a point for being interrupted. And you keep going, and do start as soon as I say now. A stiff upper lip starting now.
Being Irish.
Yes.
Deviation.
Why?
He started too quickly.
Well, the only thing I could do is that I gave Paul a bonus point when he challenged for hesitation when it wasn't Clement. You get your bonus point, which I'm sure you want, for that particular suggestion. Which you,
Would it be safe to say my honeymoon period is over?
48 seconds are still available for you, Dara, on a stiff upper lip starting now.
Being Irish, it always...
Paul.
Have we not had being Irish about 3 times?
I've never got a chance to finish the phrase.
Yes, but not in this round.
Really?
Yes, really.
Is it a catchphrase?
Well, I've heard his stand-up comedy and he doesn't mention it.
I seem to have heard it an awful lot.
If you're new to the game, it's a good way of beginning, isn't it?
Well, it's like being Irish?
Yes. I mean, it'd be a bit silly if I was...
So the 2 words being Irish have got me with hesitation, deviation and repetition at this stage.
I haven't weighed in yet.
So, Dara, you had another incorrect challenge. You have another point. And you still have a stiff upper lip. And believe it or not, there's still 46 seconds to go. And you start now.
As a paddy.
Paul challenge.
Deviation.
Why?
You didn't start with being Irish.
Oh, give Paul another bonus point. You have another. Don't start with as a paddy of being Irish. You'll think of something else getting right. I don't mind how you start as long as you don't repeat it.
Oh, no, this sentiment is going to be expressed no matter how you want it.
Right, 44 seconds of stiff upper lip, Dara, starting now.
Not hailing from these shores, it amazes me the level to which the English would endure things with a stiff upper lip. I was on a holiday recently, there was an English woman in the group.
Clement challenge.
Too English.
English woman, though, is surely a word.
No, not an English woman, no. English and woman, no. You don't... I don't think you even hyphenate them.
No, I know, yeah.
It's a good try.
Thank you.
Clement, correct challenge. 35 seconds still available. A stiff upper lip starting now.
There are people in this country who think, even if they're Irish, that a stiff upper lip is a tremendous...
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
It was a hesitation. We never knew what that tremendous was.
You will.
28 seconds are available for Paul on a stiff upper lip with you starting now.
I always think of Robert Donat in the Alfred Hitchcock film The 39 Steps as being the personification of the stiff upper lip. The movie begins with him in a movie...
Dara, you tell me.
I think I was just the first of many at that point.
Yes, right, yes. Dara, correct challenge. 19 seconds, a stiff upper lip starting now.
The very definition of a stiff upper lip for me was on a trip to Africa this year, where a woman hailing from England had...
challenge, Paul.
Repetition of woman?
Yes. So, Paul, Clement, you pressed. Do you want to say something? No, you don't.
Yes. Not immediately.
Not immediately. Paul, another correct challenge, and you have a slight state of hysteria prevailing at the moment, but that's the festival fringe for you. It all builds and it goes and it builds and it mounts and excitement and pleasure and joy and fun and humour.
Just talk slower.
Right, 13 seconds for you, Paul. A stiff upper lip starting now.
If you prepare a plate of starch, then once it's the right consistency, you put a brush in it and start applying it to your upper lip, and within moments you'll be able to walk around Edinburgh and people will say, "My goodness!"
So Paul Merton, speaking as a whistle-Wayne, gained that extra point. He had others in the round. He's now in the lead, not quite so far ahead. And we have now 2 equal in second place, because Dara O'Brien got quite a few points in that last round. And he's now equal in second place with Clement. Freud, and Greg Proops is bringing up the rear just behind them. Well, he won't be this. And we're moving into the last round, by the way. So, Clement, it is also your turn to begin. And the subject, delightfully Scottish, this one, Robert the Bruce. Tell us something about him in this game, starting now.
I was once asked whether I knew the connection between Robert the Bruce and Winnie the Pooh, and of course it is that they share a middle name. What is always important to remember is that Dunkirk The Battle of Hastings and the Charge of the Night Brigade are, apart from Bannockburn, our finest hours. And it was Robert the Bruce who beat the English at that 14th century battle.
Greg, challenge.
A bit of a hesitation.
There was a bit of a hesitation. He was trying to think another word for Bannockburn, and unfortunately it failed. But give him a bonus. Give him a bonus point throughout, because he had this incredible round of applause, and I told him to keep going through the applause, riding the laugh, as you might say. So he has a bonus point for that, but he was interrupted. Greg, you have a correct challenge. You have 28 seconds. Robert the Bruce, starting now.
William...
oh, yes, I know what you're going to say.
Oh, that was hesitation.
It was hesitation.
Shut up. I hate this game.
Oh, he's broken down now. Greg.
I'll stagger through.
Yeah, immediately. Right, Clement, you have a correct challenge, and you have 27 seconds available. Robert the Bruce, starting now.
When in prison, Robert the Bruce had this meaningful relationship with a spider, the insect, not the thing you use playing snooker. And what he admired so very much about the four-legged thing that crept was its perseverance. He felt...
Dara, you challenge.
Presumably a four-legged spider. Has to be, somebody has to pick up on that. That's got to be wrong in any man's
right, because spiders don't have 4 legs, they have 6.
No. Let me put it to you really simply, right? Spiders are 8-legged creatures.
And that's right, yes.
Not this spider.
Oh. Might have been a spider with special needs. We don't know. We weren't there. We weren't. Were you there, Nicholas?
Almost my period, but not quite. No. I was doing a sort of Bannockburn Sale of the Century, but it didn't work. Right. Dara, yes, they don't have 4 legs. They have 8, as you say. So you have a correct challenge, and you have 10 seconds on Robert the Bruce, starting now.
All I know of Robert the Bruce is what I've seen in the film Braveheart, a film about Scotland.
And Paul, challenge.
Sadly, repetition of film.
Yes, sadly, yes. I know. 6 seconds, Robert the Bruce, Paul, starting now.
When I think of Robert the Bruce, I can't help but conjure up the sound of bagpipes, the heather, the great big battle ahead.
So, Paul Merton speaking as the whistle went, gained the extra point. Let me give you the final situation. Greg Proops, who hasn't played the show as much as the others, but did extraordinarily well. Finished in a marvellous 4th place with a lot of points, a lot of fun. Dara O'Brien, who's never played it before, finished in a magnificent 3rd place, a lot of points there. Clement Freud, who has played it quite a lot of times, but he got a lot of points and he finished up in 2nd place. But on this particular show, a magnificent score. Never had so many points scored in a show before. 23 points. Paul Merton, a round of applause. Thank you. We have no more time to play Gus Minutes, I said, so it only remains to thank these 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Clement Freud, Greg Proops and Dara O'Brien. I thank Janet Staplehurst, who's helped me keep the score. She's blown her whistle so delicately and charmingly when the 60 seconds was up. We thank our producer, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game, and we're very grateful to this lovely Festival Fringe audience here at the Pleasance who cheered us on our way, and I hope they've had a wonderful Fringe benefit time. From me, Nicholas Parsons, and the panel, thank you for tuning in. Be with us the next time we play. Just a minute. Till then, goodbye. Welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away once more, it is my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, those who listen to us on the World Service or the Internet. You are so welcome to go on listening, and it's a joy to welcome 4 exciting, experienced and talented players of the game. And once again, they're going to display their verbal ingenuity, and their humorous talent as they speak on the subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And sitting on my right, we have Tony Hawks and Clement Freud, and sitting on my left, we have Linda Smith and Chris Neal. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me sits Janet Staplehurst, and she's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Malvern Festival Theatre in the heart of Worcestershire. And Chris Neal, would you take the first round? It is shorts. Shorts. There are all kinds of shorts in this world. Tell us about some of them, starting now.
As it's an unbelievably hot evening, we record this here in Malvern, I find myself wishing I hadn't worn a suit, but instead shorts. Probably you're thinking, I bet he's got gorgeous legs, and you wouldn't be wrong. Actually, tanned, rather muscular. Some have compared me with Michael Owen. And that's where I stop.
Linda challenged.
Well, yeah, hesitation.
Yes, you've mentioned Michael Owen in the comparison. It was enough for him. He paused.
It pulled him up a bit sharp, didn't it?
It did. He caught the visual image himself.
Because he's an honest lad.
That's right, yes. Linda, correct challenge. A point to you. And you have 18 seconds on shorts starting now.
Some shorts are better than others. Claire Short's recent dithering over whether she would leave the government was rather irritating. Shorts that you wear as an item of clothing can be quite difficult for a short person to wear because it just...
Chris, challenge.
Is that repetition short? Claire Short and short person?
Well,
no, she talked about shorts.
Yeah, but shorts is the subject, not short.
Oh, he's right. He's right.
No. I didn't say Claire Short, I said Claire Shorts. So shorts is a word that
Claire
we can
Shorts
say.
was never
Who's
in the
Claire
government.
Shorts?
As in hers, the action that was hers.
Claire
Short's recent dithering. That makes sense.
I heard the apostrophe and it quite upset me.
An incorrect challenge from Chris. A point more to Linda. 4 seconds to go. Shorts with you, Linda, starting now.
Shorts often look better on a taller person, I think. Shorts...
Chris, challenge.
Absolute rubbish.
I should explain to our listeners that...
Don't you dare.
Well, you have to, because they'll wonder why on earth do they laugh at
Tell
that?
them I'm a 6'3" Nordic god. They'll believe it.
I think they've realised now that you're not. Chris is the shortest of all four of us here. That's a kind way of putting it, isn't it? So there we are. But Chris, we will give you a bonus point because the audience enjoyed what you said. But Linda was interrupted. She gets a point for that. And she's got half a second on shorts starting now.
Shorts!
So Linda Smith, the bonus point for Speakers of Whistle Wind, got a strong lead, and she also begins the next round. And the subject is George Bernard Shaw. Tell us something about that great man in this game, starting now.
George Bernard Shaw and his lovely daughter Sandy have a very strong connection with the town of Malvern. He premiered many of his plays here, such plays as...
Chris Chavez.
Don't even say it, just hand in the subject.
Chris, you've got a correct challenge. 49 seconds on George Bernard Shaw, starting now.
As we all know, George Bernard Shaw wrote My Fair Lady expressly for Martine McCutcheon.
Clement Challenge. I know what
didn't.
it is. He didn't. Yes, it was Pygmalion was written by Bernard Shaw, and My Fair Lady was Lerner and Lowe, I think. 45 seconds on George Bernard Shaw with you, Clement, starting now.
George Bernard Shaw was particularly well known for his shorts. George Bernard Shaw trousers. But in fact, many of his one-act plays were...
Number challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, right, yes. You have 35 seconds into the subject. Back with you, George Bernard Shaw, starting now.
George Bernard Shaw was a socialist, but he was rather greedy in the name department, having two first names, George and Bernard. Surely one's enough for any sane person. George and Bernard, that's far too many names for one...
Tony, challenge.
Repetition of names.
Names, yes, you mentioned names before. Tony, you got in on the subject. 23 seconds available. George Bernard Shaw, starting now.
Like Edward Elgar, George Bernard Shaw was drawn to this delightful area of Malvern. He would premiere many of his plays here, and did the audiences love him? Yes, most certainly, because the people of this fantastic area are very...
Clement challenge.
We've had an area before.
Not in this round.
Oh, yes.
I think Clement is right. Like Edward Elgar, drawn to the Malvern area.
Right.
Yeah. I could do your job, Nicholas, honestly.
I think you should concentrate on your own, actually, then.
I've given up on that one.
Well, listen, this is a strange thing about... They can be as rude as they like to me, and you laugh. If I'm a tall naughty to them, you go, ooh. So, 6 seconds, Clement, on George Bernard Shaw, starting now.
St Lawrence is probably the best-known location of George Bernard Shaw, but his connection with Malvern...
So, Clement Freud will then speak as the whistle when gain that extra point. He's now moved forward. He's equal to Tony Hawks in second place behind Linda Smith and then Chris Neal behind them. And Tony Hawks, your turn to begin. The subject, Alexander technique. Tell us about that particular technique in this game starting now.
If I was going to have a hit record, I'd use the stage name Alexander Technique. I think it could be a rap song. In fact, I've done this before in 1998 with a song called Mortar Hello. I know, keep going. Nobody's done.
They were so surprised, but they didn't. But Linda, you buzz first.
It's a bit of hesitation.
Yes, I completely lost the will to live, almost.
47 seconds are available, Linda. You tell us something about Alexander technique, starting now.
Alexander technique is a technique whereby you dominate the entire known world of your time and you become Alexander the Great, and that's called Alexander technique. It seemed to work very well for that particular world leader or...
Chris Chalmers.
Was there a repetition of world?
Yes, there was.
Yes, there was.
There was. 33 seconds. Chris, you have Alexander technique starting now. Tony, you challenged?
Yes, I think we could possibly get in for hesitation now.
I think you definitely could. So, Tony, you have 27 seconds. Alexander technique starting now.
I've had a bit of a stiff back recently, and it's affected my right hamstring. Fascinating, I know, but I was thinking of going and having some treatment along the lines of the Alexander technique. I've become very interested in what they do. It's to do with how you write...
Clement challenge.
To-dos.
Yes, to do. So, Clement, 12 seconds. You tell us something about Alexander technique starting now.
Alexander began with his ragtime band. Come over here was the first line, and Alexander, after that, developed a technique whereby the first and second...
So Clement Freud speaking as a whistle when gained the extra point. Is one behind our leader, who is still Linda Smith, and they all took it off that subject in different ways, and only one of them referred to what Alexander technique actually is. So for those of you who are interested, write to Tony Hawks. Clement Freud, will you take the next round? The subject is the Midas touch. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Midas touch was much warmer than my mum's touch.
Chris, you challenge first.
Hesitation.
I know, he's got it. He said he'd got a big round of applause and just retired on his laurels. Chris, you had the correct challenge. 53 seconds. Tell us something about the Midas touch, starting now.
Martine McCutcheon starred in a film called The Midas Touch, where she was turned to gold and couldn't speak ever again. Hurrah. It was a marvellous thing. I saw it at the cinema some time ago now in Richmond. I can't remember who starred in this film apart from the lovely M.M., as I call her.
Oh, it's a tough...
I thought I was being so clever.
It's a tough, merciless game. Tony M.M., you have the subject, and you have 22 seconds, the Midas touch, starting now.
Midas, I believe, was a Greek king who was given the power of turning things into gold by Dionysus. Anything. Yoghurt, he often did, if it took him. Toilet paper.
Linda challenge.
Toilet paper.
Well, that was a sort of expressive way
well,
of...
that's
she likes it.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not just saying,
toilet paper.
It wasn't a Proustian moment.
We've all done it. We've all gone, toilet paper.
I will give you the benefit of the doubt and say yes, but you'd have been better having for deviation, because they didn't have toilet paper when Midas was around, I can assure you.
Well, I think if we start pulling on that thread, the whole show comes.
Midas touch with you, Linda. 2 seconds now on the Midas touch, starting now.
Midas touch. It's a spike.
Now, Linda Smith, again, speaking as the whistle went with other points in the round, has now increased her lead ahead of our joint second, Tony Hawks and Clement Freud. But only 1 point behind them is Chris Neal. In the points area, it's anybody's game. And it's Chris Neal's turn to begin. So, you wanted to talk, Chris? Here's your big opportunity. And the subject is a wonderful one for you, my ideal evening. Tell us something about my ideal evening. Oh, they're full of anticipation. They're already just waiting for you to go in your usual lascivious way. Right, here we go. My ideal evening, starting now.
Thank you, Nicholas. I'd like to tell you about my ideal evening. For a start, I would stop being so honest and goody. Gee.
Linda challenged.
He just stopped.
Why can't I say the word ditto? Just work.
Just stopped, didn't he, really?
Well, only just.
Can I start again, Nicholas?
It would be a good idea. No, Linda, another point. 53 seconds. My ideal evening, starting now.
My ideal evening would involve rather less of Christopher's famous honesty. It's beginning to pall, I must say. I believe that,
Tony challenged.
Hesitation.
That was a hesitation, yes. 34 seconds, Tony. You tell us something about my ideal evening, starting now.
My ideal evening would probably be with George Bernard Shaw, were he alive, doing the Alexander technique in the Malvern Hills where he loved to walk, as did Edward Elgar. Now...
Linda challenged.
Edward.
Deviation
from the man's name.
No, it wasn't. I mean, some people might say Edward instead of Edward. I mean, the thing is, he has to keep
There is a big Spanish community in Malvern.
Yes, down in the Latin Quarter, they love Edward Elgar.
There is probably an Edward Elgar somewhere, and that's who my ideal evening would be with.
I don't think you deviated enough within the rules of just a minute when you have to keep going under pressure for me to take it away from him. So, Tony, another point to you. 22 seconds. My ideal evening starting now.
We would sit there looking out over the delightful views, contemplating life, wondering how important we really are in the scheme of things. Perhaps drinking, getting completely drunk is a possibility. I've never seen George Bernard Shaw. Well, I've said it.
When you've drunk too much, he does become George Bernard. Right. So your challenge,
My challenge was deviation.
Yes, right. We have you on that pronunciation of deviation. So, Linda, another point to you, and 6 seconds on my ideal evening, starting now.
My ideal evening is rapidly drawing to a close. What a shame. It's been so delightful.
And it could be your ideal evening because you're moving forward rapidly. Another point for Speakers of Whistle Wind. You have a strong lead over the other three who are almost equal in second place. Linda, your turn to begin. And the subject is weeds. Tell us something about weeds in this game starting now.
Weeds are often described as flowers in the wrong place, so a bunch of roses in an asthmatic's bedroom would be weeds. I am a keen gardener and weeds are the bane of my life. Bindweed, brambles, any kind of weed gets on my nerves. I notice...
Chris, challenge. Was there a repetition of weed?
No, weeds.
No. Well, I don't know. No. I'm sure there was two weed.
No, she talked about weeds all the time, but she did say weed at the end, but I think she only said weed once. But keep listening. Linda, another point. Weeds are still with you, and there are 43 seconds available, starting now.
I noticed that braless TV gardener, Alan Titchmarsh, never has very much trouble with weeds. Notice I was very careful to use the plural of that plant, just...
Clement Freud challenge.
3 that's.
3 that's we do condone. So 29 seconds, Clement, on weeds, starting now.
My ideal evening would be looking for weeds, and I'd begin at the Worcester Cricket Ground, where there is more weed than grass, I am told. In my day, a bowler called Reg Perks was the...
Tony challenge.
We'll never know what he was. He hesitated.
Tony, you had a correct challenge. And you have 13 seconds, weeds, starting now.
If at school you weren't particularly tough, the horrible boys would call you a weed. It never happened to me because I was quite strong. I've lost a lot of that strength now, as you can see, but it's been a hell of a long evening.
Tony Hawk, speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point, another point in the round. He's moved ahead of the Clement, Freud and Chris Neal, who are equal in third place, but he's 4 points behind our leader, who is still Linda Smith. And Tony, it is your turn to begin. And the subject is teenagers. Tell us something about them in this game, starting now.
I think it would be nice if they could invent a pill that would get adolescence out of the way in one rebellious, spotty lunchtime. It's a miserable time of your life, and as a teenager, I wasn't particularly happy. You get spots sometimes, particularly when you're attractive.
Linda, challenge.
A little,
Particularly when you're, yes, right. Linda, another point to you. 38 seconds. Tell us something about teenagers starting now.
Teenagers go through so many physical changes. They tend to put on a lot of weight, all on their bottom lip, because they seem to pout all the time and have problems with their feet because they can only wear trainers that cost 500 quid.
Tony, you challenge.
Two becauses.
Yes, there were two becauses. Yes.
Oh, that's so not fair.
But you got your joke out about the trainers, which was very good.
That's the main thing, isn't it, really, Nicholas?
Yes. Well, it was so appreciated. 26 seconds, Tony, on teenagers starting now.
Why must I be a teenager in love? I would listen to the radio as a teenager.
Chris, challenge.
I've definitely heard teenager twice.
Yes, you did say teenager before.
This is your little area where you specialise.
Yeah, it's my area of expertise.
Yes.
I'm singularly interested in this particular field.
You're a plurals man, obviously. Right. Chris, correct challenge. 15 seconds. Tell us something about teenagers starting now.
Somehow, I can't imagine Nicholas Parsons was ever a teenager. I should imagine he was born into the world at the age of 56, at least. When you look at him, he's terribly fresh fruit.
Linda, challenge.
Fresh food.
I was speaking Catalonian at that moment.
Right.
No,
4 seconds. Linda, you've got him with 4 seconds on teenagers starting now.
Teenage...
Who, child? Clement.
Hesitation.
Good heavens. Oh, well, because you've got a bet on him winning, haven't you? And you're doing it now. So you're going to lose the money, have to give it to Clement. Right. Incorrect challenge. Got,
Can you hesitate before you've even started?
Yes.
Oh,
half a second went, that's all.
Oh, right, okay.
You have 3.5 seconds on teenagers starting now.
Oh. I thought that went to Clement.
No, it wasn't. You had the point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I thought Clement did a correct
I'm afraid
challenge.
not, no.
Oh.
He has now.
You have now. That's the correct one, Clement. You've got 2 seconds on teenagers starting now.
Between the ages of 12 and 20, there's little else to...
Right. So there's three of them very close in second place. Clement, Freud, Christine and Tony Hawks. Linda's still in the lead, and Clement, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is doctor's orders. Tell us something about that, if you can, in 60 seconds, starting now.
In the armed forces, one used the term doctor's orders.
Tony, challenge.
Sorry, it's a bit harsh,
Bit soon, isn't
It was a bit soon. It was a bit soon.
It was a bit soon, but Clement wouldn't have forgiven me in a similar situation, I think.
I think you may be right. Tony, doctor's orders starting now.
I used to work in a fish and chip shop near a hospital and took a lot of doctor's orders, mainly for haddock and chips, cod and the same, pickled onions, that kind of thing. I've lasted Clement's...
Linda, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, Linda, come on. 34 seconds. Doctor's orders with you, and starting now.
Doctor's orders. On doctor's orders, I started to go to a gym, but then his wife found out, and that was the end of that. So I don't think doctor's orders are always a very good thing to follow. My doctor orders me about something chronic. It's very annoying. I think he perhaps oversteps the bounds of the patient doctor.
Chris, challenge.
Was that a hesitation?
It was a hesitation.
Oh, it certainly was, Chris.
Yes. Are you waiting for your plurals again, were you?
I was really, but I thought, well, I have to look at new pastors. Stay in the same old place.
Right. 13 seconds, Chris. Neil, you tell us something about doctor's orders starting now.
They're what the doctor... Is someone suggesting that might have been a hesitation?
All their buzzers went, all their fingers went, but Tony's, you were infinitesimally earlier because your light eliminated the others, and you have hesitation, of course, yes. 11 seconds, doctor's orders starting now.
I try not to go to the doctor very much. I would prefer to use other methods. The Alexander technique springs to mind. But I think they're too keen to prescribe.
Linda, yes.
That hesitation.
Yes, I haven't heard so many fluffs on words since this show began. Right, you got in cleverly with one word to go. 1 second to go, Linda, on doctor's orders starting now.
Doctor's orders are...
And so Linda, speaking as the whistle went, got another point, increased her lead, and we're moving into the final round. Chris, Neil, it's your turn to begin, and the subject, I think, is ideal for you. Going to the supermarket. 60 seconds, starting now.
In London, there is a district called Islington, which has an absolutely supermarket in Chapel Street. You can go from one end to the other and buy mops or carrots or turnips or old cassettes.
Linda, challenge.
Rather a lot of oars.
There were a lot of oars. We don't like too many oars in this...
No, obviously not.
Right. Linda, another point. 49 seconds. Going to the supermarket starting now.
Going to the supermarket these days is much more exciting than going to the supermarket with my mum when I was little used to be, because the products she bought were very dull, such as Trout Hall grapefruit segments. I used to think that the fruit-based product was tinned...
Clement, challenge.
I think that was hesitation.
That was hesitation. 30 seconds, Clement, on going to the supermarket starting now.
You can enhance your enjoyment of going to the supermarket by taking a trolley that only has 3 wheels, especially if it should have 4. I have had the most extraordinarily happy moments in many supermarkets with...
challenge.
Once again, he needs to get out more, doesn't he?
And within the rules of just a minute...
There was a hesitation.
Right, Tony, 13 seconds on going to the supermarket starting now.
I don't like it when you get to the checkout and you've got your goods and they give you a £20 note, or you pass one to them, and they hold it up and check it. When they do that,
Clement, challenge.
Repetition of check.
Oh, yeah.
You do the checkout and you do the check.
Checkout's one word.
It's hyphenated, and that's always been a muddy area.
It has become one word in some people's way of speaking, and certainly supermarkets put it as one word, but it is originally check out, then it became hyphenated. If it's gone to one word, it is incorrect. It is check out. He said check out. He said it's 2 words, check, to the checkout, and you said check. I think it should be a repetition of check, and who was it said? I don't know who. The challenger.
Come on.
Does it really matter? Can you get so passionate to sound such rubbish? Yes, we can, but you enjoy, don't you? Right, Clement, you have a... Who's challenged who? Yeah, right, Clement. 3 seconds, another point to you. Going to the supermarket, starting now.
In Czechoslovakia, I go to supermarkets...
Right, so after all that tension, and with the heat as well, it was difficult. But I'll give you the final situation. Chris Neal, who did so well when we were here in Malvern before, he finished this time just in 4th place, but his value was invaluable. Oh, God, I'm having trouble with words now. Right. Equal in 2nd place were Clement, Freud and Tony Hawkes, but they were 5 or 6 points behind Linda Smith. So, Linda, you made it. You are our winner this week. Round of applause. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game. Linda Smith, Tony Hawkes, Chris Neal and Clement Freud. I also thank Janet Staplehurst, who's helped me keep a score. She's blown her whistle so charmingly. And we also thank our producer, Claire Jones, who does such a delightful job. And we are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game. And we do thank this lovely audience in the Festival Theatre in Malvern, who've cheered us on our way, in spite of the heat. From our audience in Malvern, from me, Nicholas Parsons, from our panel, goodbye. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute!